Today we got a really fascinating look behind the curtain and some real insight into how Star Wars games are actually made. All of this, as new legal documents revealed, apparently confirmed the existence of not only the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake, but a KOTOR 2 remake as well. We'll discuss all that and more in today's video. Hey guys, this is Justin, hello, and welcome to today's video. Just a very quick sponsored segment. Today's video is not really brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends, but as you know, they've asked me to make a second channel. We're having a ton of fun with it, and now's a great time to jump in as you can unlock the Xenomorph, yes, that Xenomorph, from the Alien franchise for free, mom's credit card not required, and if you're brand new to the game, we've also got a guide on how you can do all of that, including unlocking the Xenomorph, which I will link below. I get it, a lot of you don't like Raid. I didn't either before I tried it, but they are seriously helping to fund everything we do, so it's a massive help. Speaking of massive help, today's information comes via Stephen Totillo, who took what must have been a ton of time to dig through hundreds, if not thousands, of legal documents related to a current lawsuit against Aspyr. I'm going to link to the article down below. I encourage you to check it out if you're in any way interested in Star Wars video gaming or how the industry works. These were private communications between Disney, Aspyr, stakeholders. There's lots of information I'm just not going to go over in this video, including, for example, how much KOTOR 2 sold on PC compared to KOTOR 1. But you're probably wondering, why are we seeing these documents at all? What's this lawsuit alluded to? Well, I actually covered this news a couple of years ago, I guess now on the channel, but Aspyr is the company responsible for the Knights of the Old Republic ports. Admittedly, I've only ever played the KOTOR 1 mobile port. I gotta say, I like it a lot, but in 2022, Aspyr announced that KOTOR 2 would be coming to the Switch alongside what they called the Restored Content DLC. Now, for those who aren't familiar with KOTOR 2, the game was rushed, and big chunks of what were initially meant to be in the finished product are completely missing. The game is also somewhat janky. Community modders came together to create a fix which not only restored content, but fixed a bunch of existing issues, and it's generally seen as an essential part of the KOTOR 2 experience. It's that good. And while it is a mod, it mostly is official work. Like, you've got unused voice lines and assets, which they put together to try to finish the developer's vision. Anyway, despite the marketing, when KOTOR 2 released on the Switch, the Restored Content DLC was nowhere to be found, and eventually later that year, Aspyr announced it wasn't coming. Aspyr made some efforts to right their wrong. They issued game codes for other platforms, but one fan nonetheless did sue them for false marketing. So as a part of the disclosure for the lawsuit, the documents are now available and we can talk about them. For one, what actually happened with the DLC? It's pretty much what I think most of us suspected. Aspyr promised something before they knew for a fact they'd be able to deliver. Specifically, Disney had some fairly strict requirements about releasing the game only with the consent and acknowledgement of all the modders who worked on the project, and if anyone's been involved in the modding scene, you know that can be quite difficult. You could have someone who worked only to restore a single texture, which ends up, being used continually. That's how modding works. I mean, these are volunteer teams, often made up of many people, sometimes with somewhat discrete skills, and of course, we're talking sometime in the past as well. So, long story short, Aspyr was not able, despite their efforts, to contact everyone who worked on the mod. I generally agree with Steven's take in the article. He says the following: "What I found looks like an earnest group of people operating in good faith for years, not the presumed months, to find a way to make KOTOR 2's restored content mod easily accessible for non-PC players. Whether that effort turned into false advertising is something I can't judge and that a jury won't have to determine. Last month, lawyers agreed they'd settle the lawsuit." So Stephen won't say, to me, I mean, this is pretty clearly false advertising. They promised something before they knew they'd have the ability to deliver, and undoubtedly, some hardcore KOTOR 2 fans purchased the game again on Switch, believing they'd have a way to play the game with the Restored Content DLC on the go, and obviously they couldn't. And there would have been repeat purchases here because the Restored Content mod has been made quasi-official already on PC and Mac, and Steven's article goes over more details about how they tried to make this all work over the course of several years, but I'll leave it to him. And again, link to that is in the description. Also, it's kind of funny to think about it. I did a video covering this back in the day. It got 300,000 views. I think it's quite likely one of these marketing people saw it at some point because we see a lot of effort to gauge community sentiment. Another interesting fact, however, is that during the conversation between Lucasfilm Games and Aspyr, we get some more detail about the current status of the KOTOR franchise. Specifically, we learn that as of 2020, KOTOR 1 was being worked on by Madhead Games, and that KOTOR 2 was also in the early planning stages. In fact, when they got around to the game, they were also going to incorporate content only found in the restored content mod. This is one specific quote. "Juliet was the code name for a project where we were going to do a full remake of KOTOR 2 with modern art, gameplay, keep the story and characters and the general content of KOTOR 2, but remake it for modern hardware and modern machines with updated graphics and all those kind of things. The plan was we would remake the content that was in the RCM as it relates to Star Wars in the Juliet project." Now, you'll note, again, those emails were from 2020. What is going on with the KOTOR remake? Unfortunately, we still don't know a whole lot else. The best information we have comes from a deposition of Lucasfilm Games VP Doug Riley, who said Juliet, i.e. the KOTOR 2 remake, is still technically on the roadmap. We're starting with the remake of KOTOR 1. By the way, what is Madhead Games? Well, they're a Saber studio, and they haven't really worked on anything super noteworthy, but I checked out their website, and it does say that one of their projects is an unannounced AAA game based on a famous and beloved IP that fans will eagerly anticipate. Well, we can't reveal too much yet. This is by far the biggest project we've ever developed, and we promise it will generate some serious hype. So, that seems to fit fairly well with the Star Wars Knights of the Republic project they could be working on. It's promising that we're seeing it on their website, but these games and these remakes have been in limbo for over a decade now, so who really knows? Interestingly, we do have the Game Awards later this week. I will, by the way, be streaming that live on my gaming channel, X2. We'll be having some drinks. It'll be great, but there have also been rumors of some Star Wars news there, with one leaker even stating that the big upcoming Star Wars announcement ends with the Old Republic. To be frank, I'm not sure if I believe that. If I were a betting man, I would say that the next Star Wars game we don't know about, which gets announced, and I'll technically include KOTOR in that category even though it's been teased, is Total War Star Wars. We know that Total War has another game being announced at the Game Awards. Maybe it's Star Wars. A lot of people have also guessed that it could be 40K. Honestly, I would be interested in that as well. But the rumors of Total War Star Wars have been around for a while, and if it isn't what gets announced at the Game Awards, I do still think it's possible that game is in development. So the story of the canceled DLC ends up being a somewhat complicated one. I think Aspyr was still clearly in the wrong to advertise something before, double checking with the big brass's lawyers. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Kind of surprised that they didn't settle this earlier, because now all these documents are out there and we can scrutinize them. Again, thanks to Stephen Totillo for doing all this work. Article linked down below. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.